Wife refused to give me hugs or kisses for years and always said I was exaggerating, so I kept a detailed spreadsheet for 30 days recording every single affectionate gesture she made, and the results were shocking, but when I confronted her about it she blamed me for everything. For context, when my wife Laura, 43F, and I, 34M, first started dating, things were different. She would hold my hand when we walked places. She would kiss me goodbye in the morning. She would ask me how my day went when I came home. Simple things that made me know she cared. After about 3 years together, all of that stopped. It wasn't sudden. It happened slowly enough that I didn't notice right away, but eventually I realized weeks would go by where she wouldn't kiss me unless I initiated it. Months where she wouldn't hug me first. She stopped asking about my day entirely. I tried talking to her about it maybe 5 years ago. I told her I needed more physical affection and kind words from her. She said she understood and things got better for maybe 2 weeks. Then it went back to how it was before. I brought it up again. She said she was stressed. I asked what was stressing her. She said it was work. Her job is demanding, so I understood. I tried to help more around the house. I started doing all the dishes every night. I took over the laundry completely. Nothing changed with her behavior toward me. When Laura got pregnant with our daughter, I thought maybe things would improve once the baby came and we became a family. They didn't. After our daughter was born, the affection got even less. When I would bring it up, she started saying she was too tired from taking care of the baby. But I was doing half the night wakings. I was changing diapers. I was doing the bedtime routine 3 nights a week. It wasn't just her carrying the load. Our daughter is 4 now. The excuses have shifted over time, but the pattern stays the same. When I try to talk about needing more affection, Laura either says I'm being dramatic or she turns it around on me. She'll say that if I helped out more around the house, she would have energy to be affectionate. But I do help. I cook dinner 4 nights a week. I do the grocery shopping. I play with our daughter for hours every evening so Laura can have time to herself. The other thing she says is that everything depends on how I treat her. If I'm in a bad mood one day, she'll bring it up a week later when I'm trying to talk about our relationship. She'll say she can't be affectionate with me because I was grumpy last Tuesday. It doesn't matter that I apologized already. It doesn't matter that I've been in a good mood every day since. She holds on to things and uses them as reasons to keep distance between us. Here's what confuses me the most. Our sex life is fine. We have sex 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes she's the one who initiates it. So clearly, she's not completely uninterested in physical contact with me. But outside of sex, she barely touches me. No hugs during the day. No kisses when one of us leaves the house. No hand-holding. Nothing. I'm the kind of person who shows affection easily. I hug Laura 5 or 6 times every day, or at least I try to. I tell her she looks nice. I bring her coffee in the morning the way she likes it. I plan little surprises for her birthday and our anniversary. I listen when she talks about her day and I ask follow-up questions because I care about what's going on in her life. But I get almost nothing back. Last month I was lying in bed after another argument where Laura told me I was exaggerating about how little affection she shows me. She said I was making things up or misremembering. She insisted she hugs me all the time and tells me nice things regularly. I knew that wasn't true, but I didn't have any way to prove it. That's when I decided to start keeping track. I opened a spreadsheet on my computer and I made columns for each type of affection. 1 for hugs that she initiated. 1 for kisses she initiated. 1 for times she said something kind to me without me fishing for it. 1 for times she asked about my day or my feelings. I tracked it for 30 days. The results were what I expected, but seeing them written out in black and white hit differently. In 30 days, Laura hugged me first exactly 3 times. She kissed me first twice, and both times were quick pecks on the cheek as she was leaving the house. She said something genuinely kind to me once. She asked me how I was doing or how my day went 0 times. I know some people will read this and think I'm being petty or keeping score in an unhealthy way. Maybe they're right. But I was tired of arguing in circles. I was tired of being told I was wrong about my own experience. I needed to see the numbers myself, and I thought maybe if I could show them to Laura, she would finally understand what I was trying to tell her. The thing that makes this all harder is that I still love her. I don't want to leave. I don't want to break up our family. Our daughter adores both of us and I can't imagine only seeing her half the time. But I also can't keep living like this. I feel like I'm married to a roommate who I occasionally have sex with. There's no warmth. There's no partnership in the emotional sense. I've tried to figure out what changed 3 years into our relationship. I've gone through my memories trying to pinpoint if I did something wrong or if something happened to her. I can't think of anything. Her parents are still alive and healthy. She didn't lose anyone close to her. Her job has had stressful periods but nothing catastrophic. She's never mentioned any trauma to me. As far as I know, nothing happened that would explain why she pulled away from me emotionally. Sometimes I wonder if she ever really loved me the way I love her. We met when I was 18 and she was 27. I had just graduated high school. I was working at a coffee shop and she would come in every morning before work. She started chatting with me and eventually asked for my number. I thought I was the luckiest guy alive. She was beautiful and confident and had her life together. I was none of those things. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe she saw me as a project or as someone easy to be with because I was young and eager to please. I did everything she wanted in those early years. If she wanted to see a movie, we saw that movie. If she wanted to eat at a specific restaurant, that's where we went. I was so grateful that someone like her wanted to be with someone like me that I never pushed back on anything. I'm not that same 18-year-old anymore. I have my own opinions now. I have needs that I'm not afraid to voice. Maybe Laura doesn't like that. Maybe she preferred it when I just went along with whatever she wanted and didn't ask for anything in return. I haven't shown Laura the spreadsheet yet. I'm planning to do it this weekend when our daughter is at her grandmother's house. I don't know what I'm hoping for. Part of me hopes she'll see the numbers and have some kind of realization. Part of me knows that probably won't happen. She'll probably get defensive. She'll probably say I'm being manipulative by tracking this stuff. She'll probably turn it around on me somehow. I've been reading about divorce. I've been looking at what custody arrangements typically look like. I've been calculating how much child support I would have to pay. I don't want any of this. I want Laura to care about me the way I care about her. I want her to miss me when I'm gone. I want her to be excited to see me when I come home. I want her to touch me just because she wants to be close to me, not because she wants something from me. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think I've spent 16 years hoping things would go back to how they were in the beginning, and I'm starting to accept that they never will. I'm starting to accept that this is who Laura is, or at least who she is with me. Maybe she's affectionate with other people in her life. Maybe it's just me she doesn't want to be close to. I keep thinking about the next 40 or 50 years. If I stay in this marriage, this is my life. Coming home to someone who doesn't greet me. Going to bed next to someone who doesn't hold me. Growing old with someone who doesn't seem to particularly like me outside of our sexual relationship. That thought makes it hard to breathe sometimes. I know people will say I should have left years ago. They'll say I'm stupid for staying this long. They're probably right. But it's not that simple when you have a kid and a mortgage and a whole life built with someone. It's not that simple when you still remember how things used to be and you keep hoping they'll be that way again. I'm writing this post because I need to hear from other people. I need to know if anyone else has dealt with something like this. Did your partner ever change? Did you end up leaving? Do you regret staying or regret going? I'm about to have a conversation with my wife that might end our marriage and I need to know I'm not alone in this. The spreadsheet is saved on my computer. The numbers don't lie. In 1 month, my wife of 7 years, my partner of 16 years, showed me unprompted affection 5 times. 5 times in 30 days. And when I bring this up to her, I'm the one who's exaggerating. I'm the one who's being unreasonable. I'm the one who needs to change my behavior if I want things to be better. I don't want to give up. But I'm so tired. Update 1. I showed Laura the spreadsheet last Saturday. It went about as well as I expected, which is to say it didn't go well at all. She stared at it for maybe 30 seconds before she started defending herself. She said I forgot to count the time she cuddled with me on the couch 2 days before I started tracking. I pointed out that one instance from before my tracking period didn't change what happened during the 30 days I actually recorded. She said I was being unfair and that she does show me affection, I just don't notice it. I asked her to give me an example of affection she'd shown me in the past week that I hadn't tracked. She couldn't name anything specific. She just kept saying she does little things all the time. When I pressed her on what those little things were, she got frustrated and said I was interrogating her. Then she tried a different angle. She said that any affection she had shown me in that month was because I'd been complaining so much. She said that if I would just stop nagging her about it, she would naturally be more affectionate. I asked her how long I should wait silently before her natural affection would appear. She didn't answer that question. The conversation went in circles for over an hour. She cried at one point. She said I was being cruel by tracking her like this. She said it made her feel like I was treating our marriage like a business transaction. I told her I only tracked it because she kept telling me I was wrong about what I was experiencing. I told her I needed proof for my own sanity. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Laura and I kept thinking about everything she'd said during our talk. One phrase stuck with me. She'd said that she couldn't help how she shows love and that I needed to accept her for who she is. That phrase bothered me for hours before I figured out why. It implied that this was just her personality, something fixed that couldn't change. But I knew that wasn't true. She'd been different with me at the start. She'd been capable of regular affection and warmth. I started reading articles on my phone at 3 in the morning. I was searching for anything that might explain the pattern I'd been seeing for over a decade. That's when I came across something called attachment styles. I started reading about avoidant attachment, and it was like someone had written a profile specifically about Laura. People with avoidant attachment tend to be uncomfortable with emotional intimacy. They pull away when their partner tries to get close. They need a lot of independence and personal space. They often had parents who were cold or emotionally unavailable. They're fine with physical intimacy like sex because that doesn't require emotional vulnerability, but they struggle with tender affection that implies deeper emotional connection. I read everything I could find about it for the rest of that night. By the time the sun came up, I'd also learned about anxious attachment, which described me perfectly. I was the person who needed constant reassurance and closeness. I was the person who got anxious when my partner pulled away. The articles said that anxious and avoidant types often end up together, and the relationship becomes a cycle where one person chases and the other runs. That morning I made Laura sit down with me again. I told her I'd found something that might explain our problems. I showed her articles about avoidant attachment. I read her the list of characteristics and asked her if they sounded familiar. She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked me about the part that mentioned childhood causes. I told her that avoidant attachment usually develops when someone's parents don't respond to their emotional needs as a child. Sometimes it's because the parents are neglectful. Sometimes it's because they're overly critical. Sometimes it's because the child learns that showing emotion leads to punishment or rejection. Laura got very still. She asked me to read that part again. I did. Then she told me something I'd never known before, even though we'd been together for 16 years. Her father used to lock her in her room when she cried as a child. If she showed any emotion he considered excessive, he would isolate her for hours. She said she learned very early that showing feelings was dangerous. She said she learned to keep everything inside and not need comfort from anyone. I didn't know what to say. She'd never told me any of this before. When I'd met her parents over the years, her father had seemed stern but not abusive. But she'd clearly learned to hide her true self from everyone, including him, maybe especially him. She asked me what she was supposed to do with this information. She asked if there was a way to fix it. I told her honestly that I didn't know, but that these were deep patterns from childhood and they probably wouldn't change without serious work. She asked if I meant she needed to go to a professional. I said that would probably help. She immediately shut that down. She said she didn't have time for appointments and that it would be too expensive and that she could figure it out on her own now that she knew what the problem was. I didn't argue with her. I just told her I was going to work on my own attachment issues. I'd found some online resources about anxious attachment and I was going to start there. I told her I hoped she would work on her issues too, but I couldn't force her to do anything. Laura said something then that I keep replaying in my mind. She said she understood now and that she would make more effort to give me what I needed. She said she didn't need any courses or books. She said now that she knew what I wanted, she could just do it. I didn't believe her. I kept tracking in my spreadsheet. I know that probably sounds obsessive, but I needed to see if she would actually change or if this was just another temporary improvement that would fade after a few days. It faded after one day. The day after our conversation, Laura hugged me twice and kissed me 3 times. She asked me how my work meeting went. She held my hand while we watched television. The next day she hugged me once in the morning and that was it. The day after that was back to normal, meaning back to almost nothing. By the end of the week, I'd accepted that talking about attachment styles hadn't fixed anything. Laura either couldn't change or didn't want to badly enough to put in the real work. I decided I needed to focus on fixing myself instead of waiting for her to fix herself. I started reading books about anxious attachment. I started recognizing all the ways my childhood had set me up for this. My mother had been inconsistent with affection. Some days she would be loving and warm. Other days she would ignore me completely. I learned to constantly seek reassurance because I never knew which version of her I would get. As I worked through this material, something shifted in me. I started to see that I'd been making Laura responsible for my emotional well-being. I'd been looking to her to fill a hole that had been there since childhood. That wasn't fair to either of us, even if her inability to show affection was its own separate problem. I stopped initiating as much affection with Laura. Not as a punishment or a test, but because I was genuinely trying to become less dependent on her responses. I stopped asking her about her day if she didn't volunteer the information. I stopped trying to create intimate conversations. I focused on myself and on our daughter. The weirdest thing happened. Laura didn't complain at all. For 2 weeks I barely touched her and she seemed completely fine with it. In fact, she seemed more relaxed. This confirmed what I'd read about avoidant types. They're most comfortable when there's distance. My pulling back had actually made her more at ease. I also started seeing a lawyer. I made an appointment and I went alone while Laura thought I was at a work event. The lawyer explained how custody would work and what the financial situation would look like. It wasn't as scary as I'd thought it would be. It was actually manageable. One night I asked Laura what I needed to work on from her perspective. I asked her to name the top 3 things that bothered her most about me. She thought about it and then said there were really only 2 things. She said I got defensive too easily when she criticized me. She said I shut down and stopped talking when we argued, and that made everything worse. I asked her if I fixed those 2 things, would she be more affectionate with me? She said no. She said she already loved me and that my wanting more affection was just something I needed to get over. She said I'd be a perfect husband if I stopped being defensive and stopped shutting down during arguments, but that wouldn't change how much physical affection she felt comfortable giving. So there it was. Even if I became exactly who she wanted me to be, she still wouldn't give me what I needed. She was happy with how things were. I was the only one who wanted anything to be different. I kept seeing the lawyer. I kept reading my books. I kept working on myself. And I started to realize that this marriage might already be over, we just hadn't made it official yet. Update 2. I've made a lot of progress in the past 2 months, but not the kind of progress I expected when I started this process. The books and articles I'd been reading talked about something called shadow work. The basic idea is that you have to confront the parts of yourself that you've been hiding or denying. You have to look at your childhood trauma directly and process it instead of just understanding it intellectually. I started doing exercises where I would think back to specific memories from my childhood and really sit with them. I would remember times when my mother ignored me for days and I would let myself feel what that little kid felt. Then I would imagine myself as an adult going back and comforting that child. I would tell him that he wasn't bad or wrong for wanting love. I would tell him that he deserved consistent affection and that it wasn't his fault his mother couldn't provide that. It sounds strange to write it out like that, but something about the process worked. After a few weeks of doing this regularly, I noticed I wasn't checking my phone as much to see if Laura had texted me during the day. I wasn't getting anxious when she seemed distant. I was just existing without needing constant validation from her. The change was dramatic. I stopped trying to hug Laura throughout the day. I stopped fishing for compliments or trying to start deep conversations. I just did my own thing. I played with our daughter. I worked on projects I'd been putting off. I went to the gym more. I reconnected with friends I'd been neglecting. Laura noticed, but she didn't complain. In fact, she seemed relieved. She wasn't getting pressure from me anymore to be someone she wasn't. We coexisted more peacefully than we had in years, but it wasn't because our relationship had improved. It was because I'd stopped expecting anything from the relationship. I also worked on the 2 issues Laura had mentioned. The defensiveness and the shutting down during arguments. I realized both of those responses came from my stepfather. He used to criticize everything I did when I was a teenager. Nothing was ever good enough for him. I learned to either defend myself aggressively or shut down completely to protect myself. I did more shadow work around those memories. I thought about why my stepfather had been that way. I researched his own childhood and learned that he'd grown up in poverty with an alcoholic father. I didn't excuse his behavior, but I understood that he was just a damaged person doing the best he could with what he had. Once I saw him that way instead of as a monster, the emotional charge around those memories faded. The next time Laura criticized something I'd done, I didn't get defensive. I just listened to what she said and told her I'd think about it. She looked surprised but didn't say anything. The next time we had a disagreement and I felt myself wanting to shut down, I made myself stay present. I kept talking even though it was uncomfortable. I worked through the conversation instead of walking away. Laura noticed those changes too. She told me I seemed different. She said I seemed calmer. She hugged me once or twice that week without me initiating it. But it still wasn't enough. It still wasn't the kind of consistent affection I'd been asking for all those years. Our daughter, though. She responded to the changes in me immediately. She started seeking me out more. She would bring me her toys to play with her. She would climb into my lap during movie time. She seemed more settled and secure. I realized that all my anxiety and neediness hadn't just affected my marriage. It had affected my daughter too. Now that I was more grounded, she felt safer. Then we had a really bad day. Our daughter was sick and cranky. Nothing was making her happy. Laura had a deadline at work and she was stressed. I was trying to handle everything but I was running on very little sleep. That evening after our daughter finally went to bed, Laura snapped at me. She said I hadn't done enough to help that day. She said I'd made things harder for her. She used words I won't repeat here but they were meant to hurt. I looked at her and I didn't feel the usual panic I would have felt before. I didn't feel scared that she was angry with me. I just felt clear. I told her calmly that she couldn't talk to me that way. I told her that was disrespectful and I wouldn't accept it from her anymore. She stared at me. Then she walked away. The next day she tried something new. We were having another disagreement and she got right in my face. She raised her hand like she was going to hit me. She didn't hit me, but the threat was clear. I looked at her hand and then at her face. I told her she needed to put her hand down and that if she ever tried to hit me, I would leave immediately. I said it calmly but I meant every word. Laura lowered her hand. She looked shocked. I think she'd expected me to back down or apologize or do something to defuse the situation. Instead, I just stared at her and waited. She left the room. She didn't apologize, but she also didn't try that again. I realized something that week. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't afraid of Laura leaving me. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I wasn't afraid of divorce. Those fears had kept me stuck in this marriage for years, and now they were just gone. I kept seeing the lawyer. We were putting together all the paperwork that would be needed. I still hadn't told Laura that I was planning to file. I wanted to finish my healing first. I wanted to make sure I was strong enough to follow through without second-guessing myself. I set a goal to get to 90% healed before I made any final decisions. I figured if I could get there and Laura still hadn't done any real work on herself, then I would know for sure that divorce was the right choice. Update 3. I need to wrap this story up because it's basically over now. About 3 weeks ago, I had a moment that changed everything. I was getting ready for work one morning and I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I said out loud to my reflection that I loved myself. I said that I was the most important person in my own life. I said I accepted myself completely, including all my flaws. It sounds like a small thing, but it was everything I'd been trying to get from Laura for 16 years. I'd been waiting for her to say those things to me. I'd been waiting for her to make me feel valuable and worthy. And that morning I realized she was never going to do it, and also that I didn't need her to anymore. My daughter has been doing better and better. She respects me more now. She listens when I tell her to do something. She comes to me with her problems instead of only going to Laura. I can see that my own issues were affecting how she saw me, and now that I've dealt with those issues, she sees me differently. I also stopped being a people pleaser. I stopped saying yes to things I didn't want to do just to avoid conflict. When Laura's mother invited us to dinner last week and I was tired, I just said no. I didn't make up an excuse. I didn't apologize extensively. I just said I was staying home and Laura could go without me if she wanted. Laura hasn't handled any of these changes well. She's been testing me in different ways. A couple of weeks ago she said we needed to talk about going our separate ways. She said her patience with me had run out and maybe we should end things. I looked at her and I said that was fine with me. I said I agreed that we should go our separate ways. I said I needed a real partner who could love me properly and that I didn't need to stay married to her. She didn't expect that response. She didn't say anything else that night. 2 days later she tried again. She brought up divorce as a threat. I just said okay. I said that was fine and we could start the process whenever she wanted. The next morning, she came downstairs wearing makeup and a nice outfit. She kissed me on the cheek. She said we should try to make things work for the sake of our family. She said maybe we could give our relationship another chance. I finally understood our entire relationship in that moment. I was 18 when we met. I was insecure and lonely. Laura found me and she found someone she could control. She got to feel loved and special because I was always chasing after her affection. She got all the benefits of having a devoted partner without having to be emotionally vulnerable herself. Sex was enough to keep me around. Her beauty was enough to keep me grateful. But now I wasn't that person anymore. I wasn't chasing her. I wasn't needy. She was losing her control and she didn't like it. I made one more decision after that conversation. I told Laura I didn't want to have sex with her anymore. I said that sex was supposed to be an expression of love and intimacy, and since we didn't have emotional intimacy, the sex felt wrong to me. I said I needed to be with someone who cared about me outside of the bedroom before I could be physical with them again. She got angry. She said I was punishing her. I said I wasn't punishing anyone. I was just making a choice about my own body. We haven't had sex since then. We've been living more like roommates who co-parent. Laura has been quieter. She doesn't threaten divorce anymore. She doesn't get in my face during arguments. She just exists in the house with me and we take care of our daughter together. The lawyer has all the paperwork ready. I'm going to file next month. I haven't told Laura yet, but I will soon. I need to tell her in a calm moment when our daughter isn't around. I don't feel sad about it anymore. I don't feel angry either. I just feel ready. I spent 16 years trying to get Laura to love me the way I needed to be loved. I spent 16 years thinking I wasn't good enough or that I needed to change more or try harder. But the truth is that Laura couldn't give me what I needed because of her own issues, and she was never willing to work on those issues in any real way. Our daughter will be fine. Kids are resilient and she'll have two parents who love her even if we're not together. She'll actually probably be better off seeing me strong and independent instead of anxious and needy. I know some people reading this wanted me to save my marriage. They wanted Laura and me to both heal and reconnect. But that's not what happened. Sometimes people don't change. Sometimes relationships end even when both people are good people who tried their best. Laura isn't a villain. She's just someone with her own trauma who couldn't face it. And I'm just someone who finally learned to give himself the love he'd been begging someone else to provide. The papers will be filed next month. I'll move forward with my life. And for the first time in 16 years, I'm not afraid of what comes next.